I mean, I guess that'll work. I guess we say our thanks now? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
Hi, I'm Chatt Aiton. You can use this recording to do the stuff for class.
And hi, I am Matt. You can use this recording to do for class, just like Chatt. Who knew?
Alright, good. I have 4 questions for you guys. The first one is, in modern times, there is an immense interest in the West to liberate or emancipate Middle Eastern women. Do you believe Islam and feminism could coexist in the Middle East? If so, explain.
Is it possible? Probably. Is it, what do you call this? Is it
Probable.
Yeah, is it probable? Not anytime soon, no. I don't think so.
I think that's a hard question because it's less a question of religion and more a question of culture. So the Islamic culture going on right now is very, very anti-feminist, and as a result of that, I don't think it's so possible to integrate that with feminism. I mean, at least not feminism in the way we know it, because there really need to be a complete upheaval of culture, and that just takes time.
Yeah, and the fact is that Islamic culture is much more heavily linked to religion than any Western culture could ever even comprehend, let alone deal with, so it would take a lot of time.
But you do believe it's possible?
To my knowledge, there is nothing that is overtly, incredibly obviously, like, anti-feminist about Islam, so, to my knowledge, very limited knowledge.
Alright. Can I move on to the next question?
I mean, yeah, it's your
Yeah,
thing.
What can the West do to bring about feminism into the Middle East?
I mean, are we talking third wave feminism, or? Because I'm not sure we can bring third wave feminism to the Middle East, but if we're talking about equality of women,
It's like empowering women.
yeah, to do things as they need. What can the West do? The West. I mean, I'm a very, very big proprietor of Booker T. Washington. So as a result, my kind of thing would be to have the West actually show the benefits of actually having equality with women and empowering them and all that good that it brings, and use that as an example to kind of put subtle pressure upon other parts of the world to do the same. I mean, much like democracy has spread kind of worldwide, I think that feminism could spread in a similar manner.
Yeah, there's one thing America's good at, spreading culture and then war.
Yeah. But I really don't think we should like go the W.E.B. Du Bois route with it, because that just creates issues. I mean, look at the race issues still occurring today in the U.S.
So you wouldn't be a big proponent of, like, basically self-determinism, basically let them, like, when they decide, when it's ready for them to accept it.
I mean, I don't mean don't speak out against it. I mean, don't force change upon them. Because all that's going to do is cause resistance.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot easier to give opportunities to people, let them take it, and then let them realize how useful that kind of equality is.
Alright. Okay, so my third question is, how do you think the Western media portrayal of Middle Eastern women contributes to your perception of feminism in the Middle East?
You want to take this one for a bit? I just need to think.
Alright, I would honestly say it doesn't affect me as much as it would most other people, especially considering that I really don't watch or bother with a lot of the media. I tend to get my information through other channels, especially because I lived overseas. So not as much as other people, but nonetheless it still affects it some. Because, you know, you hear the stories of people getting beaten and stuff, and that just gets spread around because everyone can get behind the fact that that's bad.
I think one of the only real issues I have with Western media portrayal is that it's really hard for any sort of Western media to get any sort of point of view from the other side. It's just by definition, it's just really hard to see from our perspective why anyone would even try to support that culture. But I mean, it exists for a reason. So.
Yeah, I mean, especially being in the U.S., we're very, very culturally one-minded. Like, if it's not in the U.S. and it's not another country that has basically the same culture as the U.S., it's basically a village with sticks and rocks and stuff. Is often the way people think about it, when that's really, really not the case.
Yeah, that kind of simplification really doesn't help, especially if you try to change someone's culture.
Yeah, especially when you have people like. So one of the things to me that was surprising is how culture shocked people like would get going to say France, for example, and that's not a change at all really for me, but for other people that's a huge change. So for people that's a huge change for, hearing about things that are extraordinarily different in other cultures just seems alien and really wrong to them.
Yeah, and that bias you can tell leaks in Western media. It's there.
Yeah.
Even if people are sympathetic towards the cause, it's hard to take someone seriously when they're sympathetic when they don't really get the experience at all. So.
All right, Chatt, you said you lived overseas, right?
Yeah.
How do you think the American portrayal of Middle Eastern women differs from wherever, like the portrayal of Middle Eastern women that you've been in other countries, or is there any difference at all?
So, in Southeast Asia where I was, there wasn't really a whole lot of discussion about Middle Eastern women there. There were a bunch of other things going on with Maoist attacks and revolutions going on. So, yeah. But in the time I spent in Indonesia, which, as you know, has the highest population of Muslims in the world, right?
Yeah.
It kind of was, depending on the place you were in, either it was extraordinarily lax and they didn't care, or they were kind of supportive of keeping Islamic culture. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that they don't want feminism to occur, but feminism is a very Western idea, and I think a lot of people within Islam are afraid of becoming too Western. I mean, seeing what that's done to a lot of other religions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Christianity, I think, is the greatest example of that. That has come a very, very long way and is very different from its original form, right? And they don't want to lose the culture that they've built up over time, right? Because that means a lot to them. That's everything to them. And so I think it's less Islam against feminism than Islam against the West and feminism being a Western movement primarily.
So it's more like a cultural suspicion, if you will.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. There was a book I read a while back called The Birth of Chinese Feminism. Right? It was basically about a Chinese feminist that was also a very, very big proprietor of anarchy. It was an interesting read, but kind of taking a look at the perspective of feminism from an Eastern ideology was extraordinarily different and wasn't really on a similar track to what the Western feminism was. Instead of having the kind of similar track of try to make equality, she wanted to essentially destroy the entire power structure and restart from the bottom to see where things truly lied in our current society, and whatever happened that way is what should occur, which was an interesting take. But like, as you can see, just due to the fact that she grew up in a different culture, things changed very drastically. So the feminism that may spring up within Islam might not be the same feminism that we see here.
Alright. And my fourth and final question is, how do you think the Western introduction of feminism affects Middle Eastern society today?
Can you repeat the question again?
How do you think the introduction of feminism in general affects the Middle Eastern society today?
it's allowed the culture to be more open, I would say. I had a friend that basically, even still to this day, makes yearly trips to Morocco. And due to the kind of like the changing ideologies in feminism, she's actually allowed to go on these trips and do things. When she first started the trips, like she really wasn't allowed to do anything, and it wasn't just because of age. It was partially because of the culture there was really just anti letting her do things. Now she doesn't do too much now. She mostly ends up taking care of kids and stuff. But she's slowly but surely getting to do more. And so that kind of moving towards openness, I think, is something that is occurring, albeit slowly.
Oh. And Matt?
I mean, I don't have, like I said before, I don't know how well I can answer this last question because.
No, it's perfectly fine. It's whatever, like, your opinions, your thoughts.
In general?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see.
It's open-ended, so.
Yeah. I mean, anything related to civil rights just inherently has, I guess in my mind, covered. If I had to try to draw parallels from my own parents' culture, it'd probably be, generally in Eastern Asian culture, it's a little bit, the Southeastern Asian culture, it's a little bit more, life is always a little bit more focused on basic needs, like survival needs, basically. And as callous as it sounds, feminism and civil rights are not exactly necessary for survival. So, it's interesting to see like the shift in values that it causes in people, I guess. Just let's think about stuff a little more. But I don't know. It's always interesting to see how it's never really a primary thought until it soaks in for a little bit, I guess. So yeah, but that's just all general. So I have no idea how it actually affect feminism culture. So I haven't either.
Alright.
Do you want to know though?
Do you have anything more to add, Chatt?
I like food. I think that the growth of feminism as it goes shouldn't really be one giant movement that's the same in every culture, because each culture is in fact different. I think the way feminism should come about is slightly different. I think the end kind of result of equality and empowerment for women should be there, but the way it goes about should be very, very different in each culture, because otherwise you wouldn't really have the individuality that culture provides.
Alright.
And this really is about providing more full senses of identity to women.
Right. Is that it?
Yeah.
Alright.
Yes.
Guys, thank you for your time.
Woot
And-
woot.
And this will conclude the discussion.
We did so much.
Yeah.
So very much.